Welcome back, finally, to Forza Horizon 5 and a new video. It's been a long time since I played this game or uploaded anything, but I thought I'd finally jump on and try the launch control and anti-lag update which they added to the game. It has changed drag racing quite a bit. It is quite a bit easier to launch now. You don't need to use layout 9, you just use the default controller layout and full throttle. So it is a bit easier for newer players and getting more consistent runs. So what I've decided to do is make an updated tune for the fastest car on the festival strip, the Diablo GTR. So I've got it just scraping into the 11.8 with an 11.899, just a bit off the best guys, but still a pretty good time. So make sure you stick around to the end of the video. I'll go through that 11.899 run and show you a few things you need to do to be able to get a time that quickly. But first things first, we're just going to go through the upgrades and the tuning setup. There are a few key differences to my previous Diablo setup, so make sure you pay attention to every detail, otherwise it's not going to work too well. So let's get right into the setup. So getting into the upgrades, first things first, I like to go over to conversion and the engine swap. I'm going to put in the 6.5 litre V12 simply because that has the most power, which is of course what we want for drag racing. Over to drivetrain, all-wheel drive swap for the festival. That is going to be quick as per usual. And aspiration, chuck on the twin turbos yet again for more power. Then going back up to engine upgrades, we're going to pretty much max out everything in this section. So race intake, race fuel system, race valves, and turbo. This is one of the main differences. We want the race twin turbo with anti-lag now, because the anti-lag is actually going to make the cars a bit quicker, reducing that delay changing gears slightly because of turbo lag, of course. Then on to the pistons, and race engine block, and finally the race intercooler. You do want the intercooler on this car. Some cars you don't because it adds too much weight, but this car is one where it still benefits from the intercooler. Then on to platform and handling. Brakes, I want to put on the race brakes because they are the lightest, and dampers, we've gone for off-road springs and dampers just because you can make them a bit softer than the race ones, which does benefit you during drag racing, getting a better launch. And onto weight reduction, obviously lowest weight possible will help with acceleration and top speed. Onto drivetrain and transmission, we're going to put in the stock transmission in this. It comes default with a race transmission in, so you don't need to upgrade it to a different one. And driveline, race driveline, just to reduce the weight slightly. And differential, I've gone for drift diff. To be honest, I don't think it really matters. They all seem to perform fairly similar because you're not actually going around a corner, so you don't really need the differential as such. You just use it for the front and rear power balance or percentage. So I've gone with the drift diff on this setup. I'd recommend just copying that so it's exactly the same as my one. Then onto tyres and rims, we're going to go obviously with the drag tyre compounds. Front tyre width, we don't want the front tyre width. You don't actually need that extra grip, and it's just going to slow you down if you upgrade that, so keep that as stock. Rear tyre, maximum rear tyre, because that's where we are going to need the grip. Most of the weight is going to be on the rear wheels and most of the power through the rear wheels. And onto rim size, rear rim size I've kept stock. Front rim size, I should say. This is one of the key differences. You want to max upgrade that. It does slightly increase the top speed and seems to help the launch a bit, so make sure you whack on that max rim size at the front. Wheels, I've gone with one of the drag wheels. There we go, the World Racing Magnum 3s. You can use any of these three really. They're all the same weight and all drag racing wheels. Then on to the front track width, I've kept that stock. I think you can change it, I don't think it actually makes too much difference. And rear track width, I've gone for max, so I just copy that just in case, so everything's the same as my setup. Then finally we're going to go on to aero and appearance, and there's only one upgrade in here which we want to put on, which is to remove that rear wing and reduce the drag, of course. So that's everything for the upgrades, and now we'll get into the tuning setup. Now, getting into the tuning setup, arguably the most important part, which is going to make the most difference to how quick the car's going. And I am using imperial units here for the mainly American viewers. If you're using metric, so like kilograms and centimeters, I'll put those underneath as well, so copy those ones if you are using metric. But getting into the tyre pressure, we're going to be using 55 front and 15 on the rear. As I said previously, you don't need all too much grip on the front end with this, so I've gone max on the front, and it does slightly help the top speed as well. Getting onto gearing, I've gone 226 final drive, 599 first, 276, 197, 149, 119 and 105. Now you can see that second gear is quite a bit longer than first gear, and that's because the cars, even with launch control, still work similar to what they did with ACS or Layout 9. where you're going to spin the wheels a bit in first gear and then change into second gear quite early, and then the car will grip up and you'll continue from there. So that's why second gear is quite a bit longer. Then getting on to alignment, this is a strange one. I've gone max front negative camber. That did seem to help the launch a bit. The car launched a bit harder and the top speed was slightly improved as well. I think it's because it's reducing a bit more grip on the front end and you don't quite need as much as the car actually has. Then we're going 0, 0, 0 on the rear camber and the toe, and 6.5 on the caster. Roll bar, I've gone all the way soft front and all the way stiff on the rear. I don't think this made too much difference, but I think there was a slight improvement going all the way stiff, but you could always use all the way soft as well, to be honest. Getting onto springs, we've gone all the way soft on the springs and ride height max front and all the way low rear, the usual kind of setup for a drag car in Forza. Onto damping, we've gone all the way soft on the rebound and all the way stiff on the bump. This is slightly different to my previous setup as well. With launch control, I think you want to go all the way stiff on the bump. It just helps the car a bit when the launch control's engaging. From what I found, the car launched a bit better with all the way stiff on the bump. Onto aero, we've gone all the way low on the front aero, of course. We don't want that extra drag. We're not going around corners, so we don't need any extra wing angle. And then rear, we don't have the wing, so we took that off in the upgrade section. Onto brakes, this doesn't really matter at all because obviously we're going in a straight line. We don't plan on stopping. I've just gone with 45, 115. I tend to do that on every setup. And finally the diff, we've gone 100, 0, 100, 0. And then the most important part, you want the balance on 80%. So sending most of the power to the rear. That's the percentage I found worked best for the launch. So that's everything in the setup. Make sure you double check you've got everything the same, because even one small thing different and the car might not launch correctly or even change gear correctly. So make sure you copy all of that. And now we'll get into the run, the 11.899. Finally, onto the run. The main things here, you want manual clutch, launch control on and traction control off. Change to second gear about a car length after those pink lines end at the start, and you don't need to use the clutch for the first gear change from first to second. Then for the rest of the gear changes, you will need to use the clutch and shift around 8,700 RPM to get clean shifts. It's quite hard to change gear with this car, so it will take you a few attempts to get all clean shifts during a run. As you can see there, 11.899, the best I've managed so far. You can use manual instead of manual clutch, but it will be a bit slower because those clutch gear changes are actually a bit quicker. On screen as well, there is the tune code, so if you want to use that instead of copying everything, go ahead with that one. And that's it from me. Please leave a like if you've enjoyed, subscribe for more videos like this, and I'll see you next time.